Good morning, everyone. Let's start our Wednesday class. And this is a continuation from last week's class. So let's do some prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhavaswaha, Tatsavitravare Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Diyo yo na prachodayat asto ma satgamya tamso ma jyotirgamya mrityur ma amritam gamya om sahna bhavatu sahno bhunaktu saviryam karvavahi tejasvi navadhitamastu ma vidvishavahi om shanti shanti shanti. If you remember from last week, I told you a little story which goes regarding this Manisha Panchakum. So that is the name of those 5 verses, Manisha Panchakum. And I was telling you that Manisha means wisdom, conclusive wisdom or determinate knowledge, a higher level of knowledge. That's Manisha. And Panchakum means a set of 5. So there's 5 set of 5 verses which Adi Shankaracharya ji spoke. He uttered those beautiful verses, and which are almost like a jewels, or you can call they are the seeds which got ocean of knowledge in them. Okay, and the story I told you that Adi Shankaracharya ji was walking with his disciples after the morning ritual of taking a bath in the Ganga. And from the other side, a person was coming. And those days, or even in these days in India, you will see certain parts, they consider some people as untouchable. Untouchable means they are even outside of those 4 varna. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Then these are the people who don't even belong to these 4. So they're called outcast also. But this particular person was called Chandaal. Chandaal is a person who does lowly work. He had dogs with him. His hair was dirty, face was dirty. So these disciples, they right away, they just told him, Kach, Kach. That means move away. Don't come close to us. If you are on our path, if we touch you, we will become dirty too. Hearing this, such kind of a disrespect, few verses came out of this person's mouth. And we went through those verses also. Let me tell you the meaning of those quickly if you are attending this class first time. He said, oh, the best among the seers. So he's talking to Shankaracharya ji. Whom are you addressing by your scornful command as go away, go away? Gach, gach. Is it to my physical body, which is made up of food, as yours, or the immutable intelligence, the Atma, embodied within, which is also within you and pervasive? So in other words, there's no difference between me and you. Whether it's the body, it is made out of anna, the food. And the Atma is the same. There's no difference between my Atma and yours. Then the second verse, he said, it's almost a question to Shankaracharya ji. The Atma is the dearest and remains as the tideless, serene ocean of bliss. pratyek vastuni, he said, nistarnaha. Sahaj anand eva bodh ambu vipro. Atma is the dearest and remains as the tideless, serene ocean of bliss. So that means there is no up and down in the Atma. And the indwelling essence in all of us, as this should be the perfect understanding of the truly learned. So if you call yourself learned, that's what learning is all about. How can such a scornful discrimination possible? As one is a holy Brahman and the other a lowly dog eater. This dog eater word comes in Bhagavad Gita also. When all is the undifferentiated Brahma. Ayam shva pachau. Ayam iti api. Mahan ko ayam vibhed Brahma. If you call yourself a learned, why this kind of a discrimination? Why this kind of a disrespect towards me? Then the last thing this stranger said, what difference is there to the sun, the precious jewel of the sky? He called this sun a money. He said, Kim Ganga Ambudhi Bimbiteram Mano Chandaalostu. What difference is there to the sun, the precious jewel of the sky, whether its radiance is reflected on the holy water of river Ganga or in the polluted pool of the dirty streets of lowly living? Sun shines the same. What difference is there in the space that fills an earthenware or a golden pot? Purevaha antram asti kanchan ghati mrit kumbho ambre. Sun doesn't discriminate, space doesn't discriminate, and you are a learned person. How are you discriminating? So this is what was said by that stranger. Some philosophers, they say that it was the Lord Shiva himself who came. God can assume any form. We all know that. So in this second line of this verse, he's asking very clearly that to the space, it doesn't make a difference. When the parts are broken, the space, which was previously encased, simply merges into the eternal space. The same way the Atma, although appears to be encased in different bodies, is one and the same when it is devoid of the bodies. The Atma is none other than the Brahma, he says. So a key lesson from these examples, which this stranger is giving us, is the importance of equanimity as the true sign of wisdom. Without this equanimity, the wisdom is not complete. No matter how much we have learned, no matter how many tirth yatras we have done, but if there is a aham bhav that I have done it, I am learned, others are not, or I am wealthy, or I am healthy, that's not a wisdom. With the true wisdom, we get to this sameness. We are all same. So now, the questions of the stranger kindle the light of wisdom. It should kindle the light of wisdom in us also. We should think about it. But this Adi Shankaracharya ji, his response to the questions of the stranger was the answers to self-inquiry. So these are 5 verses we need to do. When we learn this, we got to inquire ourselves. These verses are filled with nectar of profound wisdom from the Upanishads, actually. They are nothing but the same wisdom. But they are presented a little differently. Same wisdom, packaged a little differently. These are most significant sentences of Upanishads for our understanding. So very salient aspect of the wisdom in very few words. And that is good enough, actually. Sometimes the few words, they trigger immense contemplation, and ultimately they transform us. And that's why they are called Mahavakya. We come across many Mahavakyas in our personal and worldly encounters too. For example, that phrase, Vande Mataram. Most of us are from India. What does that do to us? It's a Mahavakya. It was good enough to trigger the desire for independence among the Indians in those days. Vande Mataram. Or in the scientific world also, the statement of that equation E equal to mc square by Albert Einstein. He was one of the greatest scientists, transformed many aspects of scientific and social pursuits in human mankind. They are also Mahavakyas. But the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads are usually simple in their structure, easier to remember, but they are immensely pregnant with wisdom. You are familiar with the Tattva-tvamasi, thou that are. Tattva-tvamasi, that's one of the Mahavakya. Aham brahmasmi, I am Brahma. But we have to understand what this I is. Or prajnanam Brahma, consciousness is Brahma. Or ayam atma Brahma, Atma is Brahma. These are the 4 most important Mahavakyas from the Upanishads. What do these statements convey? In a nutshell, these are the most profound equations that elevate us to the level of godliness, the universal self. The self or the Atma embodied in each body is none other than the universal self or Paramatma. That is embodied in the entire universe. And this is what this stranger was saying to Adi Shankaracharya ji. Generally, when we say this is equal to that, what do we infer? There are at least 3 things. First, there are 2 objects, namely this and that. Secondly, they appear to be some kind of a differences between these 2 objects, because if there is no apparent difference, we will say that they are same. But we are saying this is equal to that. So that means there is some difference, but finally there appears to be differences between these two, but differences are not real as they become equal. This is what we are saying in these verses. Atma and Paramatma. Aham Brahmasmi. There is a Jivatma, the Atma enshrined in the individual bodies, and there's a Paramatma that enlivens in all universes as the eternal witness. This is what we have to remember. There are apparent differences between these two, but we got to learn how to analyze them as students of Vedas or the Vedic knowledge or spirituality, whatever we want to call it. We analyze using the Karan and Kriya Drishti. And we'll go over it when we are studying these verses. So these differences disappear when we prove the equation. To obtain knowledge, especially in spiritual inquiry, there are 4 principles. We learned these in our study of the Yoga Darshan also. Firstly, there is a pratyaksha, or knowledge realized through 5 senses. Pratyaksha. You can see it, you can touch it, you can taste it. Pratyaksha. But the knowledge about the self, the soul, is not possible through the use of the 5 senses. So then what do we do? The second way the scriptures say, you can use anuman or inference through the reasoning, which enables for the discrimination of right from wrong, truth from untruth. Yet intellectual reasoning alone is not sufficient to indicate the knowledge of Atma. So the second way also, we cannot know self. Because reasoning is possible only when there is a concept or the object of study that is already made available through some authority. So we cannot use that. There's no anuman. Then we have a third way, agam. Agam is the authority of the Vedas, the basis for defining the context of the self. Agam, or the words of the Guru. So Upanishads are the knowledge revealed by the seers, need to have absolute faith in their authority in order to understand and realize it. If we don't have faith in the Upanishads, we have no other means of knowing about the self. And finally, the fourth is swa anubhava, direct experience. And the rishis, they say, it is a spontaneous revelation when we do this sadhana. This is the ultimate and the only way to attain self-realization, swa anubhava. It can be acquired spontaneously, either because of long contemplation on the knowledge acquired by other means, though, or in a flash by the grace of the divinity itself. So self-realization is possible only through swa anubhav, and it is aided by the long and faithful contemplation and divine grace. The reason I'm telling you all this, when we study something like this, the faith has to be there. And then we got to do our own sadhana also. We should not stop until we have the experience. I told you there are 5 verses. The first verse of Manisha Panchakum analyzes the Jivatma and concludes that it is none other than Brahma. That's what we'll see in the first one. This is known as the Jiv Brahm Vedant Rahasyam. Secret of the Jivatma and the Brahma. That is the first verse. The second verse, Shankaracharya is analyzing the Paramatma. The Atma which enshrined in all living bodies and all the worlds, and declares that only the Brahm appears as the Jivatma in the individual bodies. So that means in the first 2 verses, the complete essence of the Upanishads, the identification as well as the unification of Jivatma and Paramatma is delivered for our consumption. Then we'll see in the 3rd verse, out of compassion. See, these seers, these God incarnates, when they speak out of the compassion for people like us, because otherwise we won't be able to understand it. It's too profound, too deep for our human intellect. So in the 3rd verse, the ever graceful Adi Shankaracharya ji offers the methods for acquiring such wisdom. So these great rishis, they just don't leave us with a definition. They give us the technique also. The methods for acquiring such wisdom and its benefit to the humanity. Unless we know what the benefit is, why would we go through it? And in the 4th verse, he further shows that the Atma is the Sat, Chit, and Anand. It is the nearest and the dearest, yet remains beyond cognition. Sat, Chit, Anand. And finally, in the 5th verse, Adi Shankaracharya ji is revealing that the ultimate benefit of self-realization is the state of absolute bliss, which is filled within us as a serene ocean. And those who know this, and those who contemplate on this wisdom, will ultimately merge into that ocean of absolute bliss. At that stage, he is no more a knower of Brahma, but the Brahma itself. Now you can see that what kind of a wisdom is packed in these verses. At the end of each verse, Shankaracharya ji is declaring as his Manisha that anyone who has this knowledge and remains firmly in that wisdom, he alone, irrespective of his stature in the society, is the preceptor, guru, worthy of worship, even by the gods. These verses are beacons of Upanishads. These words are the seeds of wisdom, Vedic wisdom. When we study these verses with a sincere quest, and we put some earnest effort into it, we will reach those greater heights also. So the deepest and the intrinsic meanings of these verses definitely require careful understanding and the guidance from a teacher. So today or next couple of weeks, I will try my best. It's like my wisdom or my intellect is just like a a light of the incense stick compared to the light of the Guru's, who's his son. But I'll try my best to share whatever I get out of these verses. Let's look at first verse. And I think I sent it to you, a couple of verses. So let's do at least one verse today. And I'm going to break down these words for you because it's important to know the meaning of each word also. Jagrat, swapna, sushuptishu, sphutataraa, vidujjrimbhatae. This is the first line. Second line is brahmaadi, pipeelika, anta, thanushu, prothaa, jagat, saakshinee. Saiva aham na cha drisya vastwiti drudha prajnaapi asti chaet. That was the third line. Fourth line. chandaalostu satu dwijosthu gurur ityaeshaa maneeshaa. So 4 lines in each verse. So let's look at the first line. Some of these terms you are familiar with. Jagrat, the wakeful state. Swapan, the dreaming state. See, in the Jagrat, gross body, we are familiar with. In the Swapan, the gross body is absent for us. Sushuptishu, also in the deep sleep, where ignorance prevails. Sphutataraa, that which very clearly. Sphutataraa. Some vidu, lucidly knows everything. Vrijosthu shines in all beings. Second line, that which brahmaadi, from the brahmaadi, from the creator onwards. Pipeelika, up to the end. That means that minute life forms. So from Brahma all the way to the minute life forms. Thanushu, in the living bodies. Prothaa, embedded and indwelling. Jagat saakshinee, bearing the witness to all. Third line, saiva aham, that is I am. Na cha drisya vastwiti, this is beyond our cognition. Drudha prajnaapi asya, not knowable by external knowledge. Asti chaet, it remains verily the same. Last line, chandaalostu, maybe a downtrodden, that's an outcast. Satu, in the same way. Dwijosthu, maybe a twice born, that means who's a learned. Gurur iti is the real preceptor. Ityaeshaa, that great one. That means the great one who includes this concept. Maneeshaa, my determinate knowledge or conclusive wisdom. The indwelling Atma, which is distinctly shining within all the 3 states of experiences. namely the wakeful, the dreaming, and the deep sleep state, is the same which is pervading as the invisible thread embedded in every life. Right from the creator to the tiny ant, and remaining forever as the witness. Yet it is not knowable by any amount of external intelligence. Whoever has this wisdom and steadfast adherence to this knowledge, he alone, irrespective of his perceived stature in the world, be it lowly or holy, is the real guru, real preceptor. He says at the end, this is my determinate knowledge, maneeshaa, or conclusive wisdom. So in this verse, the first line is about the jivatma. It's about us. So to understand the self, the soul, the experiences of the self are the most appropriate areas of the study. When we analyze the jivatma, we got to go through these three levels of consciousness. You can call it three bodies, or the three experiences that these bodies are subjected to. We all know that the human embodiment is made up of 5 sheaths. Or we can call it 3 different bodies of experience. We learned from the other Upanishads, the gross body, the sathul sharir, is the anmekosh, sathul sharir. The subtle body, the suksham sharir, is made up of the 3 sheaths, pranmekosh, manomekosh, and vigyanmekosh. And the causal body, karan sharir, is the sheath of bliss, anandmekosh. We learned all this in our other scriptural studies. As human beings, we suffer or endure 3 types of experiences of consciousness. And that's why the Vedas, they call it avastha. Jagrat avastha, swapan avastha, sushupti avastha. So they correlate these experiences to the different bodies. But core of our life, that's where he's taking us. What is the core? The Atma, Jivatma. That is beyond these bodies, beyond these avatsas. Our life is defined by these experiences only. That's what we call life. But Upanishads, they ask us to analyze these experiences in order to understand the self. Only through the analysis of experiences, the underlying karan drishti can be acquired. Karan drishti. We know that generally knowledge gained through experience is different from the knowledge gained through the analysis of the experience, because that is deeper and profound. For example, we experience the sunrise and sunset every day. And we have gained the knowledge that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But we all know now, this is relatively correct, but not absolutely. Because when we analyze it, we learn that the sun never rises or sets. Only the vector of the Earth's rotation creates the notion of directions and the perception of rising and setting of the sun. We know that now. So the former knowledge is due to karya drishti, while the latter is due to the karana drishti. So there is more insight, understanding when we analyze our experiences. And this is what Upanishadic seers encourage us to do. What is the purpose of analyzing the three experiences of the self? We got to understand what is real. What is common across these three apparently different existences? The first lesson from the analysis is that we seem to own our experience in one state does not exist in the other states. We all know that sumptuous dinner, if you had in your dreams, will not fill your hungry stomach in the waking state. And the same way, the material possession of the waking state does not help our dream state. We saw that example of King Janak. He was a king. He dreamt that his enemies conquered him. He didn't have anything to eat. He was running in the jungles in his dream. So in his dream, he did not have his palace or his ministers or his wealth. That happens to us also. We should analyze it. And in the deep sleep, the only possession is ignorance. This means the body, mind, and the world of experience do not remain permanent across these three states. So what is that? We should ask ourselves, what is that which remain unchanged in all these three states of consciousness? Every experience includes at least an object of experience, the knowledge of experience, and the one who experiences. These three things are always there. Jnata, Jnayam, Jnanam. Across these three experiences of the self, the objects of experience are proven to be impermanent, because these are different for each of the three states of consciousness. Knowledge of experience is the one that seems to remain all three states. That is the term samvid in the first line of the verse. Samvid. It is only that knowledge which declares, I performed this today. I had a dream like this. I slept well. That we make these statements all day long. Distinct phases of experiences, but I remains the same. So that means that I or the self must be in the form of knowledge, which remains constant in all the three states of experiences. So what do we understand from this? That means the I who's indicating the self is different from the body, mind, or the worldly things. I am different from these objects of experiences. These are all objects. And second thing we learn from this, the I remains in the form of knowledge only. Thirdly, I is unchanged and eternally existing for all three states of self-experiences. We all know that human life is nothing but the temporal aggregate of these three experiences. That's our life. But I is unchanging, ever present. It's witnessing during the entire journey of human life. And only those who see this are the seers. That's what he's saying over here. Only they can declare that I am infinite knowledge. I am eternal. These are the key facts from the first line of the verse. When we analyze it, got to think it deeper. Not just memorizing the terms, but why these terms are given to us. Why did this great Rishi, he spoke this wisdom to us? We'll start with the second line next week. Think about it. This is your homework. Think about it. Contemplate on it. What is he telling us? Okay. And I told you we'll be doing this very slowly so that you can grasp the essence of this Manisha Panchakum. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Vishishyate Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.